Speaking of ruining faith in the government, the most beloved program, probably widely beloved program we have is Social Security.
Yeah.
And the Republican Party has been trying to gut Social Security since the day it was conceived and implemented. You can go back to the 1936 Republican platform, get rid of Social Security. They've been talking about it. Musk is out there saying there's all sorts of fraud and waste in Social Security. We know that's not the case. We know exactly how much.
Every time you hear fraud, waste, and abuse, think of a minority that he doesn't like, and it makes a lot more sense.
Without doubt. The big thing is they are going in, and now Social Security payment system is not within that payments system that you just talked about, is it, from Treasury? Does it, or is it sort of like runs alongside it?
Yeah, they get processed internally, and then the final instructions still go through the same back-end process at the Fed. I mean, there's sort of one set of bank accounts the government uses and things like that. And for example, things like prepaid debit cards, checks, all the stimulus payments, all that also goes through the Bureau of the Fiscal Service. So it's really the kind of last mile for most public spending. Yeah.
Okay. So aside from them closing different Social Security bureaus, aside from them pretending that they weren't going to close these bureaus and backtracking, and
I'm shocked. Yeah.
Well, they're doing, and aside from making it really difficult to verify your identification by insisting now that it's on the phone, they're going to increase wait times. They're going to increase people's requirements to get into Social Security agencies, et cetera.
And shut off in-person access, those kinds of things. Yeah. Just ask your grandmother to go on the internet. It'll be fine.
Exactly.
Download the app. Yeah.
But what are they doing in terms of the payment system? I've been reading, like, one of the things they clearly don't seem to, they probably didn't understand the first time. And then when they were explained it to them, they simply decided, oh, well, we're just going to continue on with this, what we've been saying, which is a lie. That we have a bunch of 150-year-olds, getting Social Security, when in fact that is just, explain to us what that is. That it's a default, but also what they're trying to do, and about COBOL, which is the system in which Social Security, I guess, is the computer language that Social Security uses.
Yeah. I think probably a good analogy here is, if you look back to the 1930s and all the absolute ridiculous smears that were put against Jewish people and others by the Nazis, and people said, how could you believe this stuff? Well, of course it's all absurd, but the lie is the point. You have to believe something absurd to justify what you're about to do. And so these things, I think, are backwards oriented reasoning. They're things that are convincing for people that are already convinced. They're just giving them a pretext. So part of it is there's this huge waste, fraud, and abuse. There's this huge grift going on, and we're finally going to put a stop to it. And everybody who's always wanted to cut it goes, that sounds good. And so to your point, one of the examples they provided is that sort of millions of people who are 150 and still receiving money, as though there's this secret sort of wonderland of people living the high life on Social Security checks. And it turns out that that's just a computer issue where if you don't put the date in for somebody's date of birth, then it shows up as if they're 150 years old. And this is the kind of thing that could be explained in 3 minutes if you wanted to hear the truth.
It was, Ryan. It was debunked, I mean, really within the first few weeks of the administration, but Musk repeated it yesterday in Wisconsin or 2 days ago.
Yeah, I'm sure it was debunked in the first 3 minutes of the first meeting when he got there. But then, of course, he just keeps going because it needs to be true. So it is, right? Oh, we've got this problem of, immigrant Mexicans doing crimes. Is that true?
But what about the 20 million dead people on the rolls?
Well, again, I mean, these are people that are either kind of not being processed, or again, they're actually alive and they look like they're dead because of their ages or whatever else, or they're not actually receiving payments and they just haven't been taken off the rolls. These are all administrative issues. People are not there secretly going to work and letting 20 million mistakes just look like on the screen flashing. It's not how people work there. These are very, very sophisticated people running highly sensitive systems. So to your earlier question, COBOL is the common business-oriented language. It was developed in the United States government in the 50s, and it was pretty much pushed out to private industry, and it's become the standard for banks and most mainframes of large systems. Anything, with the words IBM from the mid-20th century, anything with the Rand Corporation, all of that era is still using COBOL because it's very stable. It's outdated, but it's very stable. And the truth is, it's very difficult to sort of replace a whole payment system overnight when it's processing millions of payments all the time. And everybody would like to upgrade this stuff. If it was easy, it would have been done. And Musk goes in and says, we'll do it in 3 months. And it sounds very, exciting. But if you remember that the point is to break all of this stuff, then it makes even more sense what he's doing. He's going to come in and tell us he's doing a very good thing. When he fails at that thing and achieves the other thing, he will win, and everybody else is going to deal with the disruption of Social Security. And then the answer will be, we should have privatized this a while ago. I've been saying we should do that. Look,
Right.
It's already broken. So now we should use this opportunity to really fix it the right way and hand it over to Paul Ryan's private, equity buddy mates.
If COBOL was, and in this instance, we are sacrificing some level of efficiency with COBOL, some level of dynamic flexibility, I guess, with COBOL, for the fact that it's rock solid. You can count on it. There is no, I click on Twitter X and it spins and it's down for, a day, maybe, or two, once a quarter, okay, right. I can't get on for a couple hours. And so I can't, see my memes or whatever it is. What happens if Social Security goes down for 2 hours? 5 hours. Like give us like a perspective. Like what happens? Like, are checks being turned out and mailed and signaled every moment? And if 2 hours get missed, are there literally like hundreds of thousands of people who don't get their checks?
People will die. The number might be smaller if it's only 2 hours, but part of this is, yes, there's processing going on all the time. Certainly people would have to sort of stay overnight and whatever else, work out how to try to fix it all back together. They do have contingency plans. Again, this is sort of high-level mission critical stuff after the nuclear regulatory codes and things. Keeping the money moving is pretty, and keeping the electricity on, keeping the money moving is pretty high up on the list. But the bigger question is, what kind of problems would have to take place for it to shut down for 2 hours? Who would have to violate what security, etc.? But the checks are going out, but they get processed along the way. Basically, it's one big sequence. It's one big list that the computer is working down. And it's not just Social Security. It's sort of everything in the queue. It's every government payment that's going through. And so if that is to shut down for a while, then it would have to sort of restart the right way. It would have to make sure that the payments catch up, and there would probably a whole bunch of sequencing issues, because remember, payments are going out at the same time as funds are coming in. But there are people that rely on this stuff. There are not only federal agencies, there are state agencies that rely on these payments going out. And so there would be a huge
But I'm talking about like Social Security in particular. Like, are they just looking to replace everything, or are they looking to replace Social Security as a separate matter?
They're looking to shut down any payments that they want. But again, if you think about Social Security, a number of them go through direct debit, wire transfers, a number of them go through prepaid cards, a number of them go through checks, whatever the way that you receive it. In order for that part of the government to process that last mile, sending it out to you, they need to know the funds are in the accounts that they have. And so they'd be sitting there waiting, going, we've got, the next batch of checks to go out. Can we send them out? Do we have authority to send them out or not? And they'd be going, well, hold on the phone. And so that would be held up. And because that's held up, there's another set of people that wouldn't be doing something else. And so there's a kind of rippling effect once you break one piece of that process. I don't think it's only Social Security. And I think of all of them, that's one that they are going to be sensitive about. They're still probably going to break it, but that's one that's going to have a direct political impact very differently from something like USAID. So I think they're going to pilot this on the much less popular ones and then really hit the hammer when they're ready with social security.
So when we talk about COBOL, are we talking about, is that the system that is used for all payments or just the social security payments?
COBOL is a language. COBOL is like Java or C++.
Okay.
So it's not that it's a certain server, it's that it's the language used across all of them. It's the language used by JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs for their banks as well. So
this is used across the government and
if you view Musk as somebody who wants to turn Twitter, X, whatever, into a PayPal-like system, and his obsession with payments means that he has antagonism really probably towards traditional banking generally, and the fact that the Treasury is using COBOL like JP Morgan, which I didn't know until just now.
He's been grinding this axe since 2000 when he bought X.com and tried to convince Peter Thiel to turn PayPal into X.com back then, and they were.
But what's his specific rub? Like what's he pissed about COBOL, and how does that trace back to? I know this is a little past the scope of your paper, but like with PayPal, what was he mad about as it relates to this kind of stuff?
Mostly about being left out of getting to make the money. Okay. So saying you care about COBOL is just another way of saying I don't like the legacy system and I want to upgrade it. It's not about COBOL per se. It's just the pretext, just like waste, fraud, and abuse is the pretext, right? I'm an Apple user. I don't like Windows. Are you invested in Apple? Yes. Well, that's a bit convenient, isn't it?
Yeah.
So coming in and saying, hey, have you met how bad this payment system is? By the way, you should consider giving me a government contract for the new payment system. And the other part of it, which we haven't talked about that's even more important with Social Security, is what is Twitter apart from the one payment app that he wants to build? It's also Grok. It's also an AI machine. And what makes an AI special is the specialness of its data that it gets to feed on. If it gets to eat a unique diet of data that nobody else gets to eat, it's the most interesting AI out there. And buying Twitter was a very smart move because of all the different kinds of data out there. That's sort of the political data. That's the sort of cutting edge of the political discourse, whether it's politicians or journalists or weird Twitter or whatever it is. That's a very interesting pot of data to feed the beast. But you know what's even more interesting? All of the sensitive government data that no one else has got access to. So come for the quote unquote payments reform, stay for the eating the world's data.
Do we have a sense of whether he's done that?
Nope.
We don't know.
No.
So I mean, it's
he could have downloaded it all, on the equivalent of a thumb drive. Not actually, but right. Metaphorically, yeah.
And he could have done that already. He could be doing that. That could be part of the project. When Big Balls goes in,
that's right.
Little Nuts, his buddy, could be doing the downloading as Big Balls is doing the cutting.
But that was the part
Mickey
when they
Mouse and Cassius Goofy. Yeah, that's right. Send them all in. Yeah.
But it seems like they probably already took a lot. Like that, what you described earlier about that whole back and forth about they didn't have edit access. Oh, but yes, actually they did. That was the period where they were scraping all of that data. It appears to me, and that was when Wired was doing all that great reporting.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are the people that lied to Congress. These are the people that put the 19-year-old Nazi sympathizer in the most sensitive seat at Treasury. And then when it came out that he had been a Nazi sympathizer, they quietly repurposed him to Social Security as if that's a punishment. They've run out of 19-year-old white boy right-wing hackers, apparently, so they have to recycle the same 5 they've already got. But that says something to me about how much not only trust they're putting in these people, but how much, those people might already have sensitive knowledge about what's going on. But as you say, there was a period where they had complete access to that system, and it's going to take a while to kind of forensically uncover whether they did anything, because that system is not designed to have 5 other people looking over its shoulder.
If you were to update COBOL, I mean, if the U.S. government said, it's time, we need to do this.
Yeah.
What would a reasonable amount of time be, and what kind of resources would you need? Because there's a real quality to Elon Musk in this narrow instance, aside from what is self-interested in him, but this just sort of bugaboo about COBOL sort of feels like a mad scientist coming in and going oh, they thought I was crazy. I'll show you crazy, and then he blows his brains out. Yeah. Except for in this instance, it's really the Social Security system. If you were to say, and I imagine there's going to be a time, because COBOL's there's not a lot of people trained in COBOL, obviously, because it's an older computer language. Yeah. And I imagine there's a time we're going to start to update it to COBOL 2 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
give me a sense of like how big of a project that would be.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a years-long project. It would be a very sensitive project that you would have to have a lot of input from different actors in. I mean, people often talk about that metaphor of building the plane while you're flying it, but this would be building a plane while you're flying a plane next to it. Because you have to keep the thing that's already up in the air going while you build the other one. And essentially, the things that I've proposed to try to deal with this are starting somewhere else and building it and letting it grow out. So I use that Buckminster Fuller, the futurist, his line, he said, you never change reality by fighting the existing system. You build something new and you render it obsolete. But you have to actually finish building it. It has to actually exist before people will sort of switch over. And you can't shut off society in the meantime and sort of say, come back in 3 months and hopefully, we haven't descended into barbarism in the meantime. So there is this sort of question of how you build it at the same time. And the answer is you build it in small motes. You build it as a sort of test case. You pick a piece and slowly build it out. You don't just break everything at the same time. And the other part of it is understanding which parts of the process are old and sclerotic and in need of reform. Just saying, oh, it's old doesn't mean it's bad. There are things that have been working for a long time. Bicycles are pretty good. I wouldn't replace bicycles with cars. They're a different thing. And so understanding what we need to get rid of with COBOL is understanding that sometimes sort of simple is beautiful. And that the complexity it's got its own difficulties.
Rowan Gray, Assistant Professor of Law at Willamette University. Thanks so much for your time today. We'll put a link to your paper on the FISC.
Digitizing the FISC.
And we will and I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.